No, okay, now we're live.
Now we're
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. Yeah, a little confusion to start, but Andrew Galliano.
Hello, folks.
Welcome, yeah, our third guest. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Well, I brought you here because you're a legal student. We wanted
Emphasis on the legal student.
We wanted to make that very clear. He's gonna make a great lawyer. Obviously, you can tell right away from the first thing he says. He's covering his tracks. Yeah, no, dude, thanks so much for coming on. I have a huge interest in law personally. I always wanted to be a lawyer up until a certain point in my life, and then I just
still got the opportunity, Phil.
Perhaps
It's never
I got
behind you.
other things on my plate right now. But yeah, law. Why?
Why? Good question. Always fascinated me. Run in and out of legal stuff myself when I was a kid. You know, I had my fair brushes with it. Never too serious to go in front of a court or anything, but you know,
Smooth criminal.
just yeah. So it kind of fascinated me. I think it was a natural path after my bachelor as a political scientist. I don't think that was something that I completely saw myself as being. Is it working? That's good.
Yeah, just probably try to get a bit closer, but
Closer than that.
well, yeah, like
you
there's
want me
good.
to kiss it to really get
Yeah.
in there? Okay.
Should be able to smell it when you.
So I think it was just a natural path for me from political science. Made my way there. I only applied to one place, got in, and here I am. So I'm in my second year.
How are you enjoying it so far?
It's quite intense. It was a complete 360 from what I was experiencing at Concordia.
You mean Concordia versus where you were doing your political science degree?
Yes,
Right.
yes, that's it. Sorry, that's where I got my first undergrad. It's completely different. The stress, from note taking to attending class to being actually attentive in class, you know, it's a different environment, and so far it's been humbling. To say the least. I think that's a good way to put it, because you go in there hotshot with a bachelor, did very well, and then you kind of see your first grades, and and it's just downhill from there. So yeah, actually, well, I mean, not to go on a tangent, but Ottawa, you had some serious problems last week or 2 weeks ago.
I'm not aware of that.
There's a series of suicide from the law faculty. Yeah.
A series?
Like I didn't read how many there was, but there was a professor from my faculty that sent out this article saying and then had his little obit on top saying, like, if you have if you have mental issues because of like the stress and all that stuff, go see someone. Because this is what's happening in Ottawa U, and there's a stress. So yeah. It's quite intense.
That's heavy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole field is, and then right now there's also like what they call the coastal stage. So it's all the big like corporate law firms, and you're trying to get your stage for. Oh man, it's.
I bet there's some people who are
soaking
that right up.
Ass licking, if I can. Be so crude.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
To all the viewers out there. In case any of them are in your class, yeah, you gotta be. You're not just talking to me.
I'm not just talking to you right now. I'm talking to the world. Okay.
We're not gonna get into a gossip.
No gossip.
But that's interesting. I mean, about the workload, because when I was growing up, you know, there's always like, you know, everyone, you know, there's always the joke that everyone hates lawyers, but at the same time, it's kind of looked upon as a somewhat prestigious, firm. Like obviously, you know, you're mad that, you know, when they're on the other side, but you also, when you want a good lawyer, you want a good lawyer. You know, it's a very important. You're mad when
profession. You're paying for them.
Yeah, you know, it's a profession that has a lot of consequences. So, you know, people obviously want to get good service. I'm kind of rambling on, but
but I think that's indicative of why our curriculum is so intense. Is because
that's what I was trying to get
at. Yeah. Just to finish
Smart
off
man.
your thought.
Smart man.
All right. Well, so that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I'm gonna be doing my bar next year, and hopefully getting into it to the year after that.
So I was interested from this. Just going in, is there a specific focus of law that they ask you to choose, or how is it structured?
It's all general.
That way?
It's all general, and the bar is very general as well. You touch on the CCQ, all the criminal code, and all the different aspects So you learn them, and then they choose, I think, 5 or 6 of them, and you finish. You do your bar. That I'm not too sure how it works completely, but yeah, at law school you're learning everything.
I like that.
Yeah, it's good because I mean you kind of lose it after you specialize. Once you're like 10 years into practicing corporate law, ask a corporate lawyer what the mens rea is of like murder. He's not going to know what that is.
Right.
You know, so and vice versa. You're not going to ask a criminal lawyer to do your divorce or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe right off the bat he'd be able to, but
Have you I just had in my thought this head when you were saying like everyone gets these focuses. It's so funny when you see these lawyers in these TV shows that are like super good at like they have all these different cases and they solve everything and it's so great. Have you met anyone like that, or is it like a pure pure fantasy?
In school and law school, everyone, because you're learning everything, so everyone's kind of like that. So you have you're kind of forced into knowing everything, and so my comment is more to afterwards. Once you're practicing, once you're 10, 15 years in, then that's when you start seeing. I mean, it's a natural thing. Like you're practicing more criminal law. You're gonna know the criminal code, but like you're not gonna You're not gonna know all the stuff about family law, all the stuff about corporate law, all this like fiscal stuff. You know, like it's what it is.
Is there one that you have your eye on, perhaps? Criminal law.
I knew you were gonna ask this question. Criminal law, which I think you'd be happy to hear, right?
Andrew has notes on his computer.
I do have. So well, no, none about me. None about me. I know everything about myself. So
yeah, it's a bio of me. It's just stats.
It's just got Phil. A nice picture of Phil.
I can't read it, but
actually,
there's a lot of work on there. Actually, I appreciate that.
Is that a hockey picture of you on there?
Hey.
Background.
Hey. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. So what? I mean, are you evading the question, or are you?
No.
Just,
criminal law.
Okay.
Criminal law. 100% criminal law. It's what fascinates me.
Such an idiot. You totally did.
Yeah, I did, but it's okay. That's why we're
it's
we're
like, don't
here.
attack me.
That's
Talk about my pictures.
That's why that's why I'm here.
Getting me all flustered, you know.
So yeah, no, it's the.
I wouldn't hold up to your
to my line of questioning.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd forget some things. That's good.
Like,
that means I'm on the spot.
What have you done?
Yeah. So the criminal law facts, interesting, dynamic. I don't know. It's something that you interact with individual. I mean, the lawyer's always interacting with individuals, but when you're working at a corporate law, you're dealing with contracts, so you're looking at a lot of paper, and sure, there's negotiations and stuff like that, and you're dealing with the person's livelihood. But when it comes to criminal law, it's really the individual facing this burden, this insurmountable like weight on him that's coming from the justice system.
So
you can already see what side of the criminal law I would be on too.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Rambling on, but yeah.
No, that's honorable. I
That's
think. I mean, there's a certain honor in that. I mean, I remember always asking having myself the dilemma of like, if I was to go into law, what would I want to do? Kind of exactly the same, kind of dilemma that anyone would have to have, I guess, at some point. And yeah, I was like, well, would I be able to defend someone if I knew they were guilty? I don't know how that ever makes
This
you
is the
feel,
question that I lose friends on.
Lose friends?
Yes, but
it's a good thing we're not friends then.
That's right. So that's I've already lost one.
You came in here thinking we were friends.
So yeah, that's the age-old question. How can you defend someone who is guilty or someone who's committed atrocious crimes
with lots and lots of money?
I mean, sure, yeah. I mean, there's that aspect, but no, it's the simple argument is I'm defending the principles that our democracy and our free society is based off of, and that's what you defend as a criminal defense lawyer. I mean, yeah.
Well, if you don't make a great lawyer, you'll make a great politician, man. That's a great answer.
Far from the politician side. No politics for this guy. It's kind of why I got out of the political science thing. I don't think
Okay.
I'd be a good. I could be an analyst, but I don't think I'd be a politician ever.
I like analyzing stuff too.
I
That's
can
what I
see that.
do.
That's why we're here,
That's what I
right?
do. So I was like, I'm gonna build my own.
Build your own empire. I like it.
Yeah,
I'm
build
part
my
of
own.
it. I'm part of the movement.
Started my own party.
The INaction.
You know what I
party.
was actually thinking? It's so funny that you actually mentioned that. I was literally looking at what could I do to start a political party, and it's pretty easy.
It's pretty easy. Yeah, for sure. I think there was a guy in
mean-
Verdun that was doing that.
Yeah, it probably like. My dad happens to be an accountant, so I mean, I just asked him to like give me a ballpark estimate on like what it would cost to maybe have an audit done, because that's really the only like financial requirement apart from like, you know, kind of getting on your ass, and you got to get some signatures, and you got to get some I think there was like executive people. You need like 3 or 4 people to be part of your team. You need one candidate who's actually running for an office,
Right.
and you need 250 or 500 signatures, I think, depending on if you're federal or provincial.
You can get that.
Yeah, and then you have to have an audit of your stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, that's where you have to spend. And my dad's like, well, $1,000, you know, like whatever, if it's more, it could be less, you know, whatever, but roughly $1,000. So that's not so bad,
That's not so bad.
you
for
know.
sure.
And like, how funny would
So
it be?
with the potential of getting a seat in Parliament.
Yeah, that
Phil?
would be, I don't know. I don't think I would want to do it. Because I got
Oh,
I
you
got other
wouldn't.
stuff I want to do, but I want to find like someone who'd be like, yo, we can do this together, and like this would be fun.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna be the face.
No,
of this,
no, no,
this,
no, no, no.
This party.
I think this is such an egotistical thing to say. Though. Like, if I was to go in office right now, I think I'd be restrained by some of the freedoms that I would be able to have to do other things that I want to do.
In what way?
I want to run INaction. I don't think I'd be able to do that if I was an elected
Oh,
official.
okay. In that sense, I thought you were saying like some of the policies that you would have would
Well, that
would
too.
restrain you because they would be very freeing and.
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. I think like I love politics. It's something that like I don't like the aspect of doing it, but I love watching it as like an attendance. You know, like some people like watching Survivor, some people like watching, you know, whatever TV.
So,
I love watching that.
so you watch like watching the Chambers of Commerce on TV at like 2 in the
yeah,
afternoon.
I'm like one of the 12 viewers like on the TV.
I've
No,
turned that on.
I'm not that.
I've
into it,
turned
but
that
I've
on a
watched it
couple
be-
times.
I've watched it
Oh
before.
man,
I've watched it before. It's so dry, but well, sometimes it's not though. That's the funny part. You
for like
it
a
depends
minute
who
when
you
they
get
start
on.
it gets a little bit heated, but then afterwards it dies down. They're called to order, and then it's back to the mind numbing.
Right. So I don't know. Like this isn't a question that I had spoken to you about before, but I was wondering
Can't
like
answer that. Sorry.
it's all prepared. He memorized
That's
this whole performance.
That's right.
No, I was thinking about this legal thing before because I've been reading a lot about these protests. The railways is very current. It's literally still going on today for all the 6 million viewers. I keep joking
Right.
about there's 6 million people watching right here.
For sure. For sure.
For anyone who's watched all 3 of them, they're out there. you know.
Two. It's
Yeah,
soon
they're
to
gonna
be
get-
3.
They're gonna get that joke. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, so this railway protest, and like I think one of the core issues is the land, right? And one of the stories that I was kind of reading was getting on that there's been a bunch of legal rulings over do the hereditary chiefs run it or do the elected bands. So I know that the elected ones they run their reserves, which is fine, but there's this gray area about who actually operates some of this contested or unceded land, I think is the correct term for it.
Right.
And so I was wondering is what happens when the Supreme Court gets to an impasse where even they don't really know what to do, and then who supersedes the Supreme Court?
I mean, the prime minister has the right to legislate. Well, not the prime minister, but the government has the right to legislate and enact any laws that they want. But if the Supreme Court is coming down, I mean, even if what I mean by that is if the Supreme Court comes down with a decision and then the next day the legislative body is not okay with that, then they can pass a bill and change what they just decided on. That's the whole point of our. I mean, it still has to get passed. It has to go through the whole thing, but the Supreme Court has the final say on judicial stuff when it comes to legislating and creating laws. That's the division of our democracy. That's the division of our federalist system, is that there's a division, and when it comes to those kind of matters, then Supreme Court But to come back on your question, I think that's it's been the last 100 years.
It's impossible
I think,
to answer the question.
but
I'm
that's
just curious what your thoughts
but that's
are.
and that's what I'm saying. I think in the last 100 years, there's been a lot of cases like that, and the courts just say, well, the question that is in this case doesn't really pertain to that, so let's just leave it to the next time it's gonna pop up, and then we'll answer it then. And you see that time and time again in
Oh, you mean like
in
after
cases.
after legislation is passed?
Well, no, not in after, because I mean, when you go to the Supreme Court, they have questions that they're answering that are determined and are accepted beforehand, right? So that's how the system works. So if it exceeds the boundaries of those questions, then most of the times they just say we're gonna leave it till, because those are not the questions that we were asked, we're not gonna go and decide on that.
So
And that's maybe why they're.
So what happens when the consequences of kicking that can down the curb is like a 20 billion, whatever the number is, dollar pipeline, and the scale of the decision could be build it or don't.
No, but
It's
so
not
that
like,
question, so like
you know what I mean?
so land titles and all that kind of stuff has been kind of answered. No, it has. And
Not in this
Delgamuuk,
case.
RV Delgamuuk,
But it's
there's
not being enforced. Or
no, but it's not that
unclear on
it's unclear
how
exactly. So they
how
did come to the conclusion that there is such thing as titles.
Right. I'll just put it this way. In the way that I made a little post about it, whatever, on social media, and the way that I phrased it, I think was, I can't remember. I'd have to look at the fucking way that I posted.
But what was the point of it?
But it was something about like, it's just unsettled. You know, like we've kind of kicked it down, and it never really was done properly. So of course there's going to be an undecided and protests and stuff, and you know.
So this,
where's it going? You know, someone's going to have to eventually.
This question is very difficult to answer, and I don't think we should get into it because I'm not
We'll
an expert.
do it now.
No.
In 20 minutes.
We're not going to be able to answer this
No,
just
of course
because I'm gonna plead like the judges
I
at the
don't-
Supreme Court plead. It's gonna be for another court because I'm not.
But
gonna,
that's the problem.
Yeah, that could be the problem. I mean, they do their best to answer the questions that are in front of them, and when they have the answers, they do give that. But I mean, I'm not completely aware of.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
It's a vicious circle in that sense, because like, you know, if the government doesn't want to solve it, then the legal system can't solve it, and if the legal system can't solve it, then the government has to.
I mean,
do it, and
that's
it's just
the situation. That's the nature of our relationship with Aboriginal people.
Or
It's
people could solve it and just not be fucking douchebags.
Well, no, when there's billions of dollars at stake, it's not people, it's the corporations, it's
But
governments,
it's
it's
billions of dollars. There's so much to go around.
but not for the natives. In the last 400 or 500 years, they haven't seen any of that money.
I know.
So
Well, I mean, again, not to speak in extremes of like they got all or nothing, but like, yeah, they
no,
racist,
There's a
awful, terrible,
there's a big misconception of
like. I
out
mean,
there.
how else do you describe it? You know, like whatever. I mean, it's almost as bad as it gets. But
It's a genocide. Let's call it for what it is. It's a cultural genocide. It's been deemed by professionals
maybe
by,
a cultural
by
genocide. I don't know.
cultural
Well,
genocide. No,
actually,
by
I
its
mean,
definition,
I was
it's
thinking
a
of a genocide, and then I was like,
No,
like
it
I was
is.
like, well, they did murder. They murdered a lot of people too.
Dude, it's been deemed a cultural genocide.
Yeah,
Governments don't accept that.
not here.
They're
No,
not gonna accept that.
I think there is something to be said for looking at the world in the context of what it was at the time, and like, but even then, yeah, I mean, again, awful, reprehensible. Whether it's a genocide or a consistent pattern of racism or whatever the term is, it's unfair. It needs reprimanding, and the bottom line is, I just want people, especially it's awful for me to think that in Canada people are living in some of the conditions that some people are, whether that's a white person, a black person, a native, anyone. It's just like abhorrent to me. And there are so many resources available, and the fact that these problems have existed for so long, there is a serious like gap in the healing process that is, and there's a whole bunch of reasons that
good
could
word
be.
on using healing.
Yeah.
Healing. It's because it's. I think that's exactly what Canada needs to do with its Indigenous population. Is take steps towards healing and reconciling. Yeah,
And again,
reconciling their past injustices that the government has done upon them. But once again, this is falling outside of the circle of
the scope of
what I can talk about, because I'm not an expert on this, and
because of the contract that you forced me to sign before we got on
right.
camera.
No,
I
think
gonna stick strictly to the.
I think I'll allow the tangents, is just when something like this is such an important question that I don't think I should.
Yeah, neither of us are experts on it. I wouldn't ever pretend to speak for anyone. It's just my opinion. And
no, that's fine, and I can give you my opinion.
I'd
rather if it's a legal opinion, I'd rather not give anything.
I got other questions I wrote down. So I had another one that was on here. What of the stuff that you have learned would be the best thing for someone else to know, and the most applicable, the easiest to understand, and like this is a trick that you can use to get yourself out of getting in trouble?
Getting yourself out of trouble,
or avoiding getting in trouble in the first place.
I mean, just don't break the law, but
that's not always possible or fun.
Yeah. So I mean, this kind of leads on to another question that you kind of sent me, is what misunderstood? No. Is the law too complicated? And it kind of goes into most commonly misunderstood laws. But this idea that we should all know the law, and it's like you shouldn't ignore the law, like as in you can't you how should I phrase this? There's a nul n'est censé ignorer la loi, or nul n'est censé.
Ignorance is not an excuse for.
Yeah, exactly, and so. It's kind of difficult to envision yourself not breaking the law, because technically a lot of the things that you do on a regular basis is
everybody jaywalks.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect example. Phil's jaywalking ticket. Like, I mean, but most people know jaywalking is a ticket, but there's a lot of things that we just don't know that is in our system, and you're held accountable for knowing that. And their argument, which I think is a fair argument, is that it's readily available on all their websites. It's extremely easy to find. It's just maybe difficult to understand.
Gotcha.
Is that the time?
No, my timer actually didn't go off. I'm so dumb that I forgot to set the timer. I set it, but I didn't press play.
So that camera might be done rolling.
No, I don't think so, but I will go change it. Sure.
let's just take a second.
Don't know. It doesn't say on the sound thing.
Can you cut this stuff out? Or?
Yeah, I can technically, but back on.
Okay. So I was losing my train of thought. Let's just go back to
that. Happens to me literally every single time I do it.
Yeah. So let's just go back to the question that you asked. What is something? You don't talk to the cops if you don't have to talk to them. If they don't have any reasonable suspicion to think that you did something criminal, then don't talk. But be polite.
Yo,
that's kind of going against what I just said, but like,
just so happens I was watching Cops the other day.
You don't need to talk to them.
What's that?
You don't need to talk to them. You don't need to.
Okay. So, well, to your point, and I'll get there, but it's just I found it to be a very interesting interaction between a police officer and just a person driving his car. And, they look over, they're like, his tire looks a little low. Let's pull him over. Okay, it kind of starts like that. So they pull him over, they stop the car, go up to him. And then they're like, okay, just wait here for a sec, whatever. Give me your driver's license or something. And then they're like, they go back to the car, talk to the camera, and they're like, he wasn't really looking me in the eye. Let's get a dog here. Let's get a dog here. So they call in the canine unit. Search. Sure enough, he's got fucking weed in the car, and I don't remember what state it was in, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it could be here too. It could be almost anywhere in the world.
It can't be here. It can't be here.
They wouldn't call in a canine. They wouldn't call in a canine.
You can pull over someone for the Article 636 of the.
That's a good one to know.
I just know it just because it's ingrained in my head. But code sécurité.
He knows all numbers 1 through 364 too. By the way,
there's like 3,000 of them, but I know the 636 allows them to pull you over if there's something wrong with your car. So if there's a deflated tire, they're in their right to do so. That being said, they're not. If you,
I don't remember if it was deflated or it was just like he was
regardless of that,
riding a
if
little
there's-
low. You
if
know what I
there's
mean?
something
Like,
that looks that's apparent and that looks wrong with the car, then they're allowed. They can pull you over. That's in their right to do so. Should they are they allowed to release a canine on you? I don't think so.
they didn't release a dog. They brought in a sniffing dog, not one that like takes people out.
Attacks people. Okay, just
Well,
a
I don't know,
sniffing
maybe
dog.
it does both, I don't know, but-
they wouldn't be allowed to do that
No,
unless
I
it
don't
was
think
apparent.
they would have the
No,
resources.
I mean-
or like,
I mean,
yeah, if it had like a super obvious case of doing it. But like, no,
Yeah,
it
they
was
found
it was
weed on the
also
floor,
like
yeah.
the way that he kind of rationalized it. And I specifically remember him just being like, I don't know if it was like he said something about his eyes or he said something about the way that he was looking at me. But it was very much just like, we're gonna bring in the dog, you know, like we're just gonna bring in the dog, you know. And again, sure enough, he had a bunch of weed, and it wouldn't be on TV if he didn't.
That's right.
But it was just kind of the attitude of like, we're gonna do it. So the whole point was just kind of like, yeah, with that.
Well, I mean, so if you're in your car and they pull you over, you're gonna have to talk to them.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is more of your, let's say, a bystander. I mean, maybe my advice, my first advice of not talking to them if you don't have to doesn't apply. I mean, in this case, it wouldn't
Just
apply.
straight.
You would have to. Then the second advice would be just to be polite to them, be nice. Don't give them any reason to suspect that you've done anything wrong, and then just go on with your day. I don't think.
Actually, your advice still applies. Don't talk to them.
Well,
Don't say
no,
anything.
I mean, you if they pulled you over and they're asking you for your license and registration, give
I
them
have
your
I had a
license.
question. I was wondering this kind of about when I was watching this thing. Let's say they find drugs in the car, and there's a significant amount. You know, what I don't know. Actually, maybe they could ask the question both ways. Let's say there's a significant amount and there's just a little personal amount, and there's 3 people in the car. All of them say it wasn't me, and all of
Well,
them.
they're all going in. They're
right.
all
Let's
gonna
say
be
let's say they all
detained
get
and
they all
brought
get
to
let's
the-
say they all get detained, and then they actually go to court and they all say it wasn't me, it was this guy. The other person says it was the other guy. The other person says it was the other guy.
So
How does that get solved?
the criminal code defines possession in a certain way, and it could be attributed to all 3 of them. I don't know the whole of like the in detail of how possession is defined in the criminal code, but if it's in proximity and there's a knowledge of it, and if you're aware of its presence in your car and you accept it, and there's a level of handling of the drug, then these are criteria that I don't know off by heart, but
Fair.
they would just attribute it to all 3 of them.
But does the law not have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that
It's in your
that
car.
did belong?
It's in
well,
your car.
but
It's someone owns the
I
car.
have other people in my
And
car.
If by definition possession is holding on or having it manipulated
Unbeknownst
or
to
handled,
me,
but so
perhaps.
okay, but so then there's that's why we have the whole system to go through your testimony,
is it
your
my
other co-accused testimony, and they're gonna see through your bullshit if there is any bullshit. It's the judges are trained.
Let's say they all
prosecutors are trained.
stand tough and they're all like, "Nah, dude, not mine."
Okay, but then it's gonna
Not
be
my
the
bag.
decision. That's the judge is gonna give a
They're all-
decision.
I don't know.
They're all co-accused, so he might just attribute it to all 3 of you, and he might give more of a he might say that the driver had more of a possession because it's his car, and because of that he should know what's in his car, so he might address a little bit more of the possession to him. But
Why not just tell them like, "Yo, you guys should stop doing drugs. You know, good luck, be healthy."
how many times do you think that worked when your parents told you that?
I'm
not
fine.
saying you, but I'm saying like in general, when parents tell that to their kids, like,
Well,
you think their kids listen to it?
not to keep talking about drugs for the whole time, but like,
But that's what
I
I'm
think-
saying. So like, if
I
it-
think drugs should be
if-
legalized
well,
anyway.
if the judge says, "Hey kids, you shouldn't smoke weed," do you think he's gonna?
Yeah,
the,
well, I
the
mean,
kids
like,
are gonna laugh
you
and
just
walk
kinda
away.
you just kind of get to a point where you're like, well, fuck, you guys didn't say anything and can't really
But that's
prove
not-
that.
okay,
Can't
so-
really prove that you guys
okay,
actually
let's-
did.
Then let's continue that train of thought. So then a murderer, he
2
stands there
people
and
in
he
the
doesn't
car.
say.
But,
he
well, if
hasn't
there,
said
but
anything.
like usually in that case, there is a ton of evidence and it's super
you,
rare. And
they
that happens
found
because-
weed in your car. I don't see how there could be more evidence than that.
Well, they found a body at OJ's house. They
Yeah,
couldn't
but
prove
the
that.
glove didn't fit. The glove didn't fit, so you gotta quit.
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. Anyway, like, yeah, it's a fair question, And again, I don't know the answer either. I'm not pretending to have
No,
the
but
answer. I'm
telling
just
you,
trying to push you because
I'm
you're.
kind of
This is very
hinting you towards the answer. I'm pretty sure the judge would just either find
Right.
that one person. So like if let's continue it.
So
So
let me ask you.
maybe
I'll ask you a moral question to go off the same point. Is this kind of like, is it worth putting away the 10% that are? Is it worth punishing like someone who might be innocent?
what
to
kind of
put
drugs are we
away-
talking about?
Oh, what's it? We could talk about that. I was just asking a moral question in general.
Well, I mean,
I'm talking about-
the morality is going to change depending on if it's heroin or if it's
I'm
a
talking
simple
about
possession
I'm
of
talking
weed.
about commonly used drugs.
But what's
And
commonly
let's
used drugs?
Look at heroin, pills, coke.
Heroin is
all
not a
kinds of
commonly
opium,
used
all
drug.
kinds-
That's-
But that's the thing. If they legalize heroin tomorrow, are you gonna try it?
no.
I'm not gonna try it either. But people who do heroin might actually go buy it from the pharmacy or from
But
a
they-
company,
like-
and then at least they're not gonna be fucking shooting fentanyl up their veins.
But so
Because the law has proven, and there's fucking punishments in Iraq where like if you get caught with, or not, I don't want to call Iraq out, but like in the Middle East or in other parts of the world where drugs is death. Or
Indonesia.
in other parts, well, okay, Indonesia, even
Well,
a better
I think that's
example, 'cause
trafficking. Actually,
whatever it is, still, that's wild. For just people who have a health problem, obviously, Portugal is the great example. They decriminalize everything. Things seem to be working out.
I'm for it.
better
I'm
there than other
for it. I'm completely
Yeah.
for it. I'm a
So
libertarian on that sense. I think what you should do is up to you, but yeah,
Let's do it.
I don't know if I'm for legalizing it. Maybe I'm for decriminalizing it.
Sure.
Two different.
But then the problem is
aspects.
if you don't go all the way, you're just letting the black market run the thing.
Okay, so you want the government to get into selling your
Doesn't have to.
neighborhood heroin?
I want them to be regulating it as they would regulate traffic or engineering or other things, where they just say like, we want the market to be stable.
You see
and
what they're doing right
healthy.
now with your weed industry.
They're
and
ruining
They're
it
ruining it
in
exactly.
Canada.
So
They're encouraging people to
do
go to
drugs.
the black market. They're not, and
I
actually,
know,
it
I
would
know.
be.
It's the black market
I
there.
actually think, I honestly, genuinely think that it would be better if they let them market themselves like any other company does. And then you take away the stigma, you make it not bad, and
Yeah.
you just let people do whatever the fuck they want.
I mean,
Again,
we can
I'm
both
super
we can
libertarian
both
on that
agree
too.
that there's certain drugs that have a huge effect, adverse effect on individuals. There's a range. There's definitely
For
that's why
sure.
we categorize them. There's a range to them. So some of them affect the individual a lot more than others. And
For the record, I'm not encouraging people to do heroin
no, I don't think you are.
or any other.
I don't think
drug.
you are, but I think we should be aware of the fact that there are various effects that weed and doctors, and I'm not included in this because I'm not a doctor, but that specialists don't even know, So we could be going down a slippery slope, but I do think that decriminalizing it and taking away the stigma is the way to go. I'm for that.
Let's do it.
All right.
I think I could get some people on board. I'm not that I'm pretending to be the first person who's ever had this idea, and it's for sure there are many
Like you
people
said,
who
Portugal.
are obviously working on.
Portugal.
Yeah, well, again, I don't think they've gone far enough, but I think that it's
Didn't
obviously a
they
good first step.
legalize or no? Did Amsterdam?
They,
There's a kind of one-
I think the Netherlands or maybe it was Amsterdam specifically let magic mushrooms, or they
Yeah.
had magic mushrooms for a long time,
Yeah.
and then maybe they just changed the kind of mushrooms you can do recently. But
I'm not
anyway, I don't want to. Yeah.
sure. All right. So
Yeah.
we went through that one.
Yeah. What else do I got on here? I think you took some notes too. You got all kinds of work. I can't.
You can't see it.
No, I can see it. Just talk about your day while I'm reading this.
One day.
Yeah.
I actually went to see a case today. Pretty interesting. Let's talk about that actually. So in one of my classes,
I'm listening, by the way. I'm just
yeah. Preuve et procédure pénale. So it's covering all the procedure for criminal. And the teacher decided our midterm is going to be us going to the court, seeing an appeal case, and writing a judgment on that. And the case, so actually, it'd be interesting to talk about this. It was a man who was taking care of his brother since he was like 4 years old. His brother is mentally ill. He's got schizophrenia, that kind of stuff, and he gets aggressive. So he has, over the last years, has had to resort to physical restraints. And on this one occasion, he used too much force and accidentally, and I use the word accidentally in a very specific way, killed his brother. So what happened was it was declared a homicide involontaire. I don't know how to say involuntary homicide. Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Sorry, guys, I learned it in French.
Hold on, it have to be manslaughter, because how could it be involuntary homicide? Isn't the definition of manslaughter like murder, but not on
maybe
purpose?
it's manslaughter.
Yeah, or involuntary. I don't know. I'm not. You would have to know more.
I learned all this stuff in French, so sometimes the translation
just
screws
grammatically the idea of it doesn't
make
sense.
So that, and he pleaded guilty to that. So that wasn't the appeal of this. The appeal was on the sentence. So the judge justified, what was it 2 years minus 1 day, but it was, or no, it was 6 months. Anyways, it was a very clement, I think that's the English word, sentence.
Yeah, clemency is
clemency,
like being very, like lenient.
Yeah, it was a clement word, clement sentence.
You're good.
And
keep it rolling.
The prosecutor deemed that it was wrong, so she was asking for 8 years, and he got like this very small sentence. So they were on appeal of that, and then so it came down to, when you're giving sentencing, you have different reasons why you're giving. So there's a public dissuasion, there's a discouragement. You got to factor in a lot of different things. And she was arguing that there's this general dissuasion for people in like public sectors or handling vulnerable people, to dissuade them from using force.
That makes sense. Aggression, whatever.
Non-proportionate force. And so the judge, the appeal court, rejected the case and said that the sentence was right.
So 2 years as well.
I think it was like that. I think it was either 2 years minus 1 day, or sursoir, which is like.
And this is 2 years of prison, or.
That's why. So I think he got a sursis de peine. So it's kind of like you're on bail, but you have conditions, and if you were to break your bail, then we would give you the sentence that we were saying. So let's say we said it's 2 years minus 1 day, but I'm going to put it aside, give you conditions so you can live at home. But if you were to break any of the conditions, then we would be able to apply the sentence that we originally said. And so there's this moral and ethical dilemma that she was trying not to get into, and that's, how do you deal with someone who does an accident and kills someone? And this is a question I'm asking you.
Me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've been asking me questions.
Who, me?
Yeah. I think it was interesting.
God, that's a good question, actually. And these are exactly the kind of stuff I like getting into on the app. So it's a totally fair game. Oof, well, I struggle with a lot, and I guess my problem would be, what do you define as challenged, and like how far along on the spectrum, and what is the range of that spectrum?
No, let's take that away. Let's take that away, and let's just take the main question, which is, what do you do with an individual that commits a not murder, but commits a involuntary action that leads to someone's death, or maybe even it's a voluntary action, but the side effect of that action leads to
a car crash or something.
Yeah.
Something where, like, obviously you didn't want to do that, but at the same time you are totally responsible for the outcome of that.
Or I come in and you're walking through that door, and I by accident knock, or I just try to play a joke and I hit the wall, and the door falls and hits you in the head and you die. That kind of stuff.
Why you gotta talk about me like that?
No, I'm just giving like absurd,
sketching me out.
No. Or in this case, the guy's handling his brother, and this one time he used too much force, and he died.
Again,
The
like
man died.
like my first instinct is just like I want to just cop out and be like, oh, we got to go on a case by case basis. But like,
It's
it's
but
so
there's more to it.
it's
So
like there's that, but it's also unhelpful in a legal sense because then you end up in this constant search for justice. Where
No, I mean, that's why we have full
nothing ever
checks.
really seems fair. Nothing ever really balances out, and I don't know. I'm gonna have to cop out because I don't have the answer to that, and like I guess like in a weird way there is no answer because like humans are not united enough where we can decide what justice is and what's fair.
I mean,
unless there's like a thing that says like, but then again, like what's
Okay, so do you
responsible? Take your example because my brain works this way. If I knock that roof down, is it your fault or is it the fucking architect who built the building and the building I'm not up to code? And is it?
I
is
mean,
it my fault as
civilly
the
it'd be a
landlord?
different conversation,
Is
but
it my
criminally,
fault as the landlord? Is it my fault for pushing it over? Is it my fault because I live here? I don't know. And I guess depending on whose chair I'm sitting in, it's not going to be my fault. Sorry, no matter whose chair I'm sitting in, it's not going to be my fault.
I mean, yeah, that's the adversarial system that we work with. Yeah.
Because you never want your person to be guilty, and I know. I meant to mention. I know it's a personal issue for you because you worked like in the past with
Yeah, that
some
was
of the people who
exactly.
had
That's
this
why I found it kind of fascinating because I worked with these clients, this kind of clientele for a long time, and I can understand that there's accidents that could be had, and they're not wanted, and I personally don't think that an individual that causes an accident that was not something that was planned or wanted should be punished to the full extent of the law. I mean, it's to compare 8 years. She was asking for 8 years. 8 years is like a murder sentence. You know, it can go higher. It can go.
Yeah.
No. But you can. I mean,
Yeah, with parole.
depending on the situation, like you can. These are severe or drug trafficking, huge criminal offenses. Yeah, maybe not murder. I mean, I think maybe murder can be. I know. I
thought
think
in Canada
maybe it's
25 is life, and
is there a minimum? Maybe there's a 14-year minimum on murder.
I don't know your field.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm a student, so I could
No,
be
it's not
taking things out of. No, I know, but
I
I could be. Like I said, I don't know.
It's like,
all
oh,
of these
you
things.
don't know that?
But yeah. So to ask for that, I mean, prison.
I hope I gave a fair answer. Like,
Yeah, I think
don't mean
you did,
to
and I
cop
think
out, but like that's I understand why it's so hard, and I don't ever mean to come off as accusing people. Oh, you should do this or you do that.
It's hard when you're on that side of the line, eh?
It's when you're involved. It's all different. You know, and like with depending on what side you fall on, it gets it. You know, emotion is involved, and it's personal at some level. Even if you try to recuse yourself from it, it's still personal. How can it not be?
I'm not sure. All right.
But I mean, I guess like generally, I would tend to lean on the side of rehabilitation and lenience. So I mean, like whatever the.
So that's what the judge ended up saying there. The system should be a little bit more lenient. Like we accept that he it's a sad story. At the end of the day, it's a sad story. This guy has to live with the fact that he killed his brother.
Yeah, it's,
you know, like
there's in my head, it's completely different from someone who plans like I'm gonna get a gun and I'm gonna go to this spot on this
guy
day.
that was in the church, the Quebec church there. Alex. Yeah.
I don't remember his name. Yeah. Doesn't deserve to be remembered.
No.
But yeah, I like obviously like that's again that hits close to home because you're like fuck.
That's right.
Not that far.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, what do you do with those people? That's a good legal question.
What do you do with those people? What do you mean?
Well, specifically, I know of a case in the UK where they took away someone's citizenship. There's this woman who.
Yeah, but he's Quebecer. This guy's Quebecer.
I know this is a completely different. I'm changing the.
Okay.
I'm talking about. Well, it kind of frames in the same sense of like, what do you do with these people? Like, let's say that they survive.
You can't strip a person.
Well, they did. Because she had.
I mean,
she had debatable. I think it was Bangladesh.
No, but did she have another? Did she have another passport?
Arguably, there's a country that she's never been to, but that she holds through her. She holds the right to a passport, I think, from a different country.
Right, because you can't render a person stateless.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
But the loophole was that her parent, or whatever. I don't know I don't know all the details, but like, from what I understand, it was either her parents or she was born there but never lived there like a day of her life.
So they were just arguing that this person is just going to go back.
She's got that. She's just fine. We're taking away her British one.
Passing on the problem to somebody else.
Yeah, to a third world country that's like way more likely to have something go either wrong in the sense that they're going to get in trouble in jail, or wrong in the sense of like, well, whatever.
I don't know.
Maybe they deserve to go shoot to jail. I don't know.
I don't
well,
know
that's
what
the question.
answer.
Is
I
like
don't know. I don't
legally,
know what
like
the answer
if you're
is to
talking
that.
about international, obviously this is not.
It's something
Probably
that
not
I
the
do.
focus of your school.
know. I know. It's something
Is it?
that
Okay.
I mean, I studied that. That was one of your questions here. Was the drone strikes?
Yeah.
So there is. I do.
Well,
International is a
the
field
one
that
with Iran very recently, where they
Yes.
took out that. Did people in your school talk about that at all? Like, because there's.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely something that was spoken about, and something that I don't think should be condoned by governments to do, to take an action to send out drone strikes to kill individuals that.
Well, what if they're?
He might.
This is the argument, though.
He committed crimes, of course.
But so have many people. The question was he going to commit crimes imminently in such a way that taking him out arguably could save more lives? And then is that ethical?
I mean, international law says you can't do that. There's
I
a
think
right to
international law says you're able to do it if you're defending
You're
yourself.
defending yourself,
But
and
if you're defending an
Okay, so
imminent attack,
no. So that's the thing. So that's the argument that everyone uses and that I've heard in class as well. And the teacher doesn't accept it, and I personally don't think I accept it as well. How are you going to so courts, courts of justice have deemed that the right to defense is something that is strictly, and like you can attest to this, I put strictly proportionate in capitals.
we're gonna get a fact check here.
In capitals, strictly proportionate. Because they don't want.
Okay, so is a drone strike a bombing or like a suicide bomb?
No. So let me continue on
Let's
this.
say it's the same thing. Let's say they're going to plan a suicide bomb. They're going to go to the middle of the city. They're going to blow up a bomb. They're going to kill 50 people.
It's a hypothetical thing. This guy's
so is the drone strike. Maybe they hit him. Maybe they don't.
The guy's dead. He is
now.
hypothetical.
He's dead now.
He's dead.
When they're planning it, like, well, maybe we don't kill 12 members of his family, or like not in this case, I think, but in other times they've.
No,
they
so
have
so
to
the
rationalize,
international
take this guy out and we kill other people,
argument, like on the legal argument that you're putting out there is not one that is valid, because courts don't accept it. It has to be strictly proportionate. How can it be strictly proportionate if it's a hypothetical situation? Like you're bringing out hypotheticals, so you're going to take the man's life based off a hypothetical.
Well, it depends what
and
the
how is that
intelligence
proportionate?
Depends what the intelligence is. Let's say they know for almost, I mean, like you watch those movies and they always say like we know either 50% or 100% or whatever it is, whatever mission you're talking about.
Okay,
Like,
I can
we
say
got the emails, we got the plans, we got the pictures, we got the whatever. It's happening.
And intel has been proven time and time again to be false. What
But
was the reason why we went into Iraq? Or they had mass destruction.
The yellow cake.
They had mass weapons of mass destruction in there.
There's,
and how false was that?
There's a yellow cake from I think it was Uganda or Nigeria, whatever it was.
This information. So it can never be preemptive, defensive.
Often it's right.
Right? How is it right?
How is it right? I mean, it depends what level of crazy you live on in the world, but I've read a bunch of books by other people. I've worked for the CIA. I have one in my room over there from John. I think it's Michael Hayden, I think is his name, and he used to be the director of the CIA and of the NSA. Okay, and he was a colonel, like a military, whatever. This was his life, and like the challenges that he talks about, and the stuff that they actually do put off, and obviously like some stuff doesn't get public, and so. There is that side as well too, where sometimes when you're putting up some of these freedoms and you're putting up some of these laws into very gray areas, and he very much emphasizes in the book, like when we always would work or at least try to find a way to make it work within the law. But
do you believe that?
I think that they genuinely tried. I'm not a doomsday person who thinks that.
CIA?
I think they're awful people, but I think it's mostly the world is just selfish, and that's where a lot of these problems come from. And I think more people in the CIA are trying to do good than do bad. I think maybe they're being used in a way that is not, always the right way. But I don't think the CIA in itself is
I think
bad.
if we were living in a different country where CIA was operating in a covert way, then we would have a completely different way.
But they just so happen to be working in such a way that does, I think, genuinely benefit my security. Now, in the larger picture, do I wish there was a world where we didn't need those people? Yeah.
And
For
what
sure.
about them? What about the argument that they have created these kind of
Bad. Yeah.
So their actions kind of created these kind
But
of.
again, you talk about the context of the world. The world's always been that way. The world right now is more peaceful than it's ever been.
Oh, of course, and I completely agree with that.
And this
and part of that is because of international law, and
like
part
the
of that is
CIA,
because
I mean,
of these laws that we've put in place.
If you think about the idea of the CIA, it's not even that novel. There's always been, different levels of espionage and state secrets and stuff. I mean, going back thousands of years. So I mean, like, the idea is not novel. Just the technology is different and the scale of it is different. And like, again, like, I think it's a very valid point when you're talking about some of these things that are going on around the world, is that, like, obviously not for everyone, and I don't mean to make this way, but for me and like for most of the quote unquote developed world, this is the most peaceful time probably ever.
Yeah, I mean, life expectancy is a lot longer. General happiness is probably higher. People's income is higher. These arguments are valid, but is there not? Yeah, exactly. Huge but. There's a lot of people that are going through a lot of stuff that is different from 100, 200 years ago. Our needs have changed. So. And especially the gap between the twos have grown exponentially. So,
yeah. Well, yeah. It's like, would you rather be a poor person now than you would, 50 years ago?
Chances are, when you were poor before, you might have had land.
But that don't.
Or it could have been just you owning a little bit of piece of land, and you had your patch, and you didn't have to worry about going to work, and you just worked your land.
But you did have to worry that some fucking knight was going to come riding
Yeah.
through and cut your head off.
Life expectancy was a lot less, for sure.
You gave him like 6 loaves of bread instead of fucking 12. Like, Jesus.
Have a better.
Yeah. The world is such a nasty history, man. I like history.
Humans have had a nasty history.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I think I said that.
Sure.
If I didn't say that.
No, you said history, but I mean, I guess,
yeah,
it's implied. Humans are part of.
Well, yeah. I mean, most of the history we know has been documented by humans. I mean, I guess the animals have done their part. Like they fucked us into existence.
So you're an evolutionist.
Some level. Well, I guess so. I'm out of the bag now.
Yeah.
Sorry to all my truthers out there. I had them fooled for a while, but I blew it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, it's it's pretty cool. All right. Yeah. I don't remember what your question was, but
the question, I think, was, do you see?
Oh, the stuff that you see in the news and
in the news. Yeah, you do.
How you engage that or interact with that as part of
so
your
like I was saying, the teachers, the way they teach us and they grade us, well, they test us, is sometimes taken from real life events, and they just want a commentary based off of the laws that we learned and how to apply it. So definitely sometimes I look at what politicians say, what articles say, and obviously you're going to find discrepancies in there because they're not jurists, so they're not going to know the full extent of it.
They're not even trying to tell the truth, even if they were.
Even if they were
jurists. Even the ones that are lawyers.
I mean, that's it. Don't take my word for it. That's for sure.
No, take mine.
That's right.
That's my area of expertise.
What I do have is a different outlook on how I interact with society. That's for sure. I mean, I remember one of my classes was all civil responsibility stuff. So walking down the street and slipping on ice, who's responsible for my back breaking? And who can you go and sue and all that stuff? So like all these little things, and then there's
sue nature.
There's well, it's not nature, it's the city, right? They have to.
That's how climate change is going to lose. It's going to go broke from suing it.
But so that's
like, are we going to give money? Are we going to fix climate change? You're like, no,
it's broke.
Let's sue it. It's its fault that the world's dying.
If we believe in the climate change,
we're going to sue it for $20 trillion. Yeah, I got another question for you. What the flying fuck are people doing in the States where they're like suing people for like $500
because they don't have
million
caps.
dollars. Like,
They don't have a certain cap on it. And the courts. It's a
Hold on.
common law system, right?
keep talking about that. I gotta fix something.
Yeah, it's a common law system. So the courts have accepted stuff like that. So that's why people are able to sue that high, and they allow it. That's what I mean, I don't know the system, but from the way I understand our system, we've put caps on certain things, and the courts can't give more money than a certain cap. In the States, I don't think there is that cap. So
Heard everything you said.
perfect. So there's your answer.
Well,
to your question.
it's ridiculous. Okay.
Well, it's
And
ridiculous, but
it's
it's
annoying.
not, because it's what they just ruled of the opioid. Is it the opioid? No, it's the.
Yes.
It is the opioid, right?
Well, that's one of the many cases
No,
that
that
are
just
going
happened
on
last
every day.
month, where they accepted it was like a $1 billion lawsuit.
I think
and-
there's been multiple cases with multiple different
yeah.
opioid
So
companies.
I accept. I believe
But yeah,
that
there's been
because
some,
there's a lot of people they have to
there's
pay
been some
and
big rulings.
yeah, and maybe our courts would go that high as to
You know what I'd like to see? I want the money. But I want to see some people go to jail. I mean, if they really are guilty of doing some stuff that's like
it's two different things,
Ethi-
right? It's
ethically
two
terrible.
different things. Civil and criminal is two different things. So the balance of the evidence and everything is going to be a lot higher if it's going to be criminal.
no, I understand that.
Right? So
But I'm saying, like, if we really like, how could you sue someone for $2 billion, but like the person's not guilty of something? You know what I
it
mean? Like,
doesn't work.
it's
The facts,
so-
one doesn't allow. I mean, we
Like,
have
I
this
know,
is
I
a question that
understand
we
that.
think about too as jurists, like, and that we learn is that when you have a civil case, the le seuil is higher than in criminal, because the criminal, it's beyond reasonable doubt. So it's a little bit you can create as soon as there's a little bit of doubt, then you should acquit, right? Like if you don't believe the person did it, then he shouldn't be guilty. But in civil, it's just a balance of probabilities. So if he believes you more than me, then that's what it is. And just because I believed you in a civil case doesn't mean the judge is going to believe you, or if it's enough to go beyond
I know.
reasonable doubt.
I'm just saying, if they did something that was so bad that it merited a $2 billion fine, I find it hard to believe that there could not be some fucking criminal shit in there. How could it be?
It's possible, and maybe there are criminal charges against them. Maybe
As
there
far
are.
as I know,
You're not the state prosecutor, so
I am not. Nor will I ever be.
sadly.
You might be. No, you wouldn't be a state prosecutor. Be perhaps a provincial prosecutor. Would you ever want to work for like?
I would. Yeah, I think I'd like to. I'm thinking maybe my first couple of years, maybe do my stage there, just 'cause they train you very well.
Resources, baby.
Like it's, and also, I mean, isn't it Sun Tzu that says know thy enemy, or maybe it's not him, but some old warrior.
Probably
samurai.
many people have thought that.
Yeah. Know thy enemy. You know. So, not saying actually, prosecutors and defense lawyers should not be enemies. They should be working towards the truth, and regardless of what side it comes on, the truth should be what governs all actions when you're dealing with criminal matters.
Do you think it would be fair to say maybe not so much they should be? Did you say working together?
Working together. Well, not working together in the sense like hand in hand, let's work this case, but working together as in like when I ask for evidence, give me the evidence, and don't.
Yeah, the truth should
like,
be the primary.
And I think there is that it's a norm that we as jurists have. You might not have it at all instances, because I mean humans are humans and they act the way they act, and you might be offended by one prosecutor, you might be offended by one defense attorney, but at the end of the day, you have someone's livelihood at hand, and you should be able to put that aside. Some people are unable to do that, but I think the main norm is that you should. I don't know how I went on this tangent, but so know thy enemy.
the
So
theme
it's
of
not
the day.
What I'm saying is they're not your enemy. you're working towards getting to a truth, and you're providing a side of it that your client's telling. A lot of the times, I mean, I haven't had that experience yet, but from what I've discussed with other lawyers is that you don't always know all the facts, because the person that you're going to be talking to is going to give their version of it.
I think a good way to look at the law is or again, in an ideal world where you don't have people with personal interests where they want to, get the maximum that they can, is you just look at it like in journalism or science, where you have like a control element where you're like, okay, you guys go try to prove that, and you guys go try to prove that, and then we're both going to meet in the middle and be like, these are the facts,
But that's kind of the way we work, but there's a handling of evidence, and you're not isolated. That's why I said working together, because it's not an isolation thing, because the prosecutor is going to have a lot more evidence, a lot more they have, especially like in murder cases where they walk into a room and they accumulate all this evidence, whereas the defense attorney is just there, dick in his hand, just what am I I have to wait for this stuff. So the prosecutor has to send over this stuff, and they have to work together in that sense, where it has to be equitable.
OJ's like, I got the glove.
or they don't have, that's true.
And he's like,
but exactly. So and it goes by, if the accused has something that's hiding and he tells the lawyer, and then that becomes evidence that would be important to the case, then it should be handed over. That's the principle of it.
That's the dream.
It doesn't have to be handed over right away. I'm just saying, you put it in evidence, and then
that's what's frustrated me the most about, obviously I watched the U.S. Impeachment trial, and it's like the refusal to let even witnesses go on stage. Like, oh, come on. I know it's like, I understand that it's for show, and that it's like, what's illegal? What's illegal for the president? The bar is set so low for what, and it was before, and it is now, and it always has been, is they can pretty much do whatever the fuck they want. And I don't think that what he was accused of specifically was such a negligible thing that they're like, all right, we got to kick this guy out of office, compared to what else is going on. Like, it's terrible conduct from a prime minister. I don't condone it. Or sorry, prime minister, president. I don't condone it. I think it's terrible, but if that's going to be the bar, watch out, politicians.
Well, I mean, watch out, Democrats for sure.
You guys are in trouble.
Well, I mean, if they make it next one,
and then the whole thing just becomes a sideshow. Well, and it's not.
I think we're already on that downhill.
And again,
slope.
if they had something that was so concrete that it was there, that then they should have known, and they.
No, even I think if even if they did, the Republicans weren't gonna. What does that say? That they don't support their own party? If they allow that, they're not gonna support.
We support the truth. Let's get these people talking.
They're politicians. Do you think they care about the truth? They live in.
Think about that though.
But I know, of course, I think about that. But it's scary, because those are the people who are making decisions for our country.
You guys need to regulate over. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why
they pass laws, and you guys got to figure them out.
But yeah. But that's why we.
And then sometimes some fucking asshole's like, "Hey, I got a good idea. This is how we can make $6 billion.
Oil.
Yeah, let's drill. No, well, this is a question. It's not about law, but I had it on the app too. What do you think the future of oil is? I mean, it kind of in the same context of this.
I think it's dwindling down. I think they're building up this hype. After the kill, after Soleimani.
That's probably not how you pronounce it either, but that's
how
we in the West pronounce it.
We'll go with that. The oil prices spiked, and it was low. And what do you think that does? If you believe in this conspiracy
oil
stuff,
prices have not spiked.
They did.
Maybe they did that day.
That's
or
what I'm
that,
saying. In
that
the last
time.
in the 3 days after that, they spiked.
But they're nowhere near where they were.
Okay. There's a general trend down, of course.
Well,
but what I'm saying is that it creates.
The world is still very heavily reliant on petrochemicals. So until we have an actual plan to replace the grid, and I'm not talking about we can start heating a few homes. I'm talking about we need to rethink the whole way that things work. Because oil doesn't just it's involved in so many, not just transportation, but so many pieces of plastic and shit that's all over the place that before you start shutting down projects, let's figure out how we're gonna actually
There's a lot.
replace
I
the
mean,
grid.
I think there's a lot of innovation and a lot of people that are trying to come out with these solutions.
Sure, and we should talk about that. It's the same
And
as,
they were going
the
on a
same
lot
way as-
earlier than this, but then oil companies shut them down.
the same as not hiding evidence. I think we should have all the evidence, and we should be working together as scientists and
That's
figure
right.
shit out.
That's right.
But yeah, who's gonna do that?
But I think the general trend is probably going down. So I'm happy for that.
yeah.
But coal is maybe made its way back because
coal. Where?
Trump.
Because of Trump? No.
Of course he did. He invested in coal.
That's
He got a
fucking
bunch of
PR
jobs
stunt.
back.
Probably
He
doesn't-
got a bunch of
exactly.
jobs
a couple
back.
jobs. It's a PR stunt.
It's not making its way back. It's not going
I'll
to be.
drink that. You
internet-
think he's gonna win again?
I can't. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows, man? It's a crazy world out there.
I could see both worlds happening, which is so crazy because the first time I remember being like, nah.
That's what I had a bet. I had a bet that it wasn't going to be. But then again, you're going to choose Hillary or you're going to choose Trump. Yeah, it's
What a question in the world.
abstain.
What a great. I mean, the whole world is like that. I find it so funny. And again, I mean, that kind of wraps around to like what I'm trying to do. And then you talk about you the whole time. You're talking about me a little bit. That's the problem I'm trying to solve. What the fuck? Why are we listening to these two clowns? Let's fucking, let's put
Let's hear about other people.
heads
Yeah,
together
yeah,
and
I
figure
mean,
out what
that's
we
the-
want to do. And it's so simple. Let's get some ideas out there. I think most people I talk to, despite whatever flaws they have, and I have plenty,
So do
they
I.
they have some good ideas. I'm like, let's listen to these people.
Yeah.
And
Give them a voice, and that's what your app's doing. And I think that's fun.
I respect the hell out of you, and I love you for being one of the only people that's out there almost every day. You're almost always the first one to throw.
Oh
your
yeah,
vote in
I
there.
actually every morning I look for the new question. I'm like,
I
I'm
love
on
it.
that.
I love it.
I'm on
I'm
that.
so
I might
happy
not
you
write
do
a
that.
comment because I find it.
I don't even read the
I
comments.
find it
like that.
draining, but even I read them,
Yeah.
but I find it draining. I can't stand texting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd
I feel
rather have a conversation, and if I disagree with you, then I'll have a debate with you on the spot. I can't
feel
go
you.
through the
But
internet.
the vote, I think
trolling
the
and all
vote
that
is the
stuff.
most important. Anyway.
Yeah, the
And,
vote,
like,
exactly.
The rest of it is, like you said, it's a conversation, and like hopefully the vote is enough to stir a conversation, and like
And it has from
hope
on
so.
some of the questions. It has, and
hope so.
I like that. There needs to be more people that download the app and do some voting.
6 million people.
6 million people. I'm in for it.
I love it. You should be in for it. I think it's gonna be a fun ride.
I support it, and I think it's a good way to get people talking and get individuals aware of certain questions, certain problems with our society, and trying to offer solutions.
I think so too.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Some
what
of
I
your
said.
questions are
I should record that.
have hit home, so it's
Anyone in particular?
The one that I saw 2 days ago, the sexual predator or sexual offender, should
Yeah,
they be unregistered? There's a terrible stigma about them, and I think that sure they should definitely be registered. There should maybe be a time limit to them. I think that there's if we believe in rehabilitation, and if we believe in our justice system and our penal system, then we can. Yeah, I'm not saying penis over there, Phil. Then we gotta believe that these individuals did their due, and they deserve they're still humans, and they still deserve to live a life without this stigma around them. Here's the example that I'll give. AIDS. Right now, AIDS is.
I didn't think AIDS was a crime. Oh shit!
Of course it is.
Yeah,
If you don't tell,
is.
and you should see the
Yeah.
amount of people
that
that
should
are.
be a crime.
But
I'm laughing. It's not funny at all. But yeah.
no.
I mean, the same goes for any really. I mean, if you know you have a transmittable
Right.
disease, you should.
Right, but so medical science has improved so much that now it's very, very low risk of transmitting it if you take certain measures. So
Right.
if your risk is so minimal, and okay, I do believe that if you don't inform the person, that there should be consequences. But now, as to register them for the rest of their life, where they're stigmatized, that they're ostracized by society, I don't
Okay.
believe that. I think that
For
you have to be
for
aware
anyone
of this.
who's made it this far. Okay.
Well, probably the 6 million views, maybe
kudos
like
to you.
3
I think I've said this also. Like at some point, I've like thought about the whole context of the podcast, and I was like, wow, if someone made it this far, first of all, let me acknowledge you.
Yeah, we're up
And
there.
so,
I should have said this at the beginning.
And-
This is the intelligence part too. Fuck.
yeah, and there was a second part to that, but
If you made it this far,
yeah, I don't remember. It's gone. I've been there for too
something
long,
about
I guess.
AIDS.
No, that
You should tell the person that
completely
you're with,
forgot.
but you shouldn't feel bad about having it. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be ostracized for having a disease.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And you
I
shouldn't
remember what I was
be
gonna say.
like
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for those of you who do, like, I put a question on my app that said, should sex offenders be on a
Right.
public registry? And then I had another question that said, should all crimes be on a publicly searchable sort of domain?
no.
And
No.
well, but you know what? But I'm gonna
No.
ask you why I
Why
thought
I
about
said-
why I put yes, and why and where the idea of the thought. I don't remember what specific case it was, but there was something where I was thinking, like, when a celebrity goes to jail and there's people showing up every day taking pictures of them, writing intricate details of everything going on in the case, their criminal record has become public. How is it fair that everyone else's shit
Not
gets
fair.
sealed
It shouldn't
and
be.
their fucking shit is, their dirty laundry is aired out every day?
They're in the public. That's. I mean, how are
They-
you going to limit that? How are you going to? Should every
Make everyone
individual
fucking
be punished for the fact
Or
that celebrities
tell
are getting
people
through this?
to fuck off.
But okay, sure, but that's a different question. Now, if we go back to the premise of this, is individuals having this information public. So one is the simple nature of who they are as a public figure, and the other is an individual who's accused and I mean, if you have a criminal record, is because you've been found guilty. So it's two different spectrums. Now the guilty, they pay their dues, and should they be it's extremely difficult for someone
What-
who's gone through jail or that's been found guilty
What
to find a
percentage of criminals
I don't
are
know the
repeaters?
job. A high percentage. And why is that?
Do people
why is
deserve
that?
to? Okay, so here's the other question.
Why is that?
People have paid their time. Okay, well, there's a whole bunch of societal reasons that are fucked up, and
Which is
and
one of
punish-
them is
and
that
punishment.
they have
punishment
to
is
say
the
it.
punishment is the primary purpose and not rehabilitation.
Yeah.
For most cases in,
Yeah.
in jail. Or
Right.
I don't want to make a blanket statement, but I think in a lot of cases that would be true. And obviously, anyway, there's rehabilitation makes sense. But that's another question I have on the app, and anyone again who's made it that far should definitely go check it out. But yeah, like that's the problem: is how do you fucking find the difference between rehabilitating versus punishing these people? And
It's a mixture
Are
of
we
both.
doing-
And-
are we
and that's
doing the
when
good
you're
job?
you're giving a sentence, the judge looks at these. There in the criminal code, it's very specific. When you give a sentence, there's certain things that you emphasize. And if you want dissuasion, if you want punishment, if you want rehabilitation, there's these different things that the judge can emphasize. And in his judgment, he should explain why he's giving that.
okay, again, I remember what I was gonna say. Do we have a right to know that this person is a potential threat? They've proven in the past that they are a threat. So this person has a right to privacy. Do we not also have a right to information that says this person is potentially dangerous?
I mean, you can go on what is it called?
You can do a criminal background
Yeah,
check.
on
I looked
websites.
it up, and you have to pay money. And
Yeah, and it should, because you should also protect the individual. It's if you committed a crime tomorrow, you were driving and you accidentally killed someone. What is it going to show up in your file? Manslaughter, because you obviously didn't do it on purpose. But what is that going to be for the guy that's trying to hire? Oh, this guy went to jail for killing someone.
well,
He's not
but
gonna
what
say
if-
he's
what
gonna
if
say
the-
see manslaughter, but he's gonna think in his head, was it manslaughter?
What if
Was
there's
it?
but aren't they? If they do a background check, they're gonna find that out anyway. What if there's at least some information they could look up and be like, well, these are the both sides of the story. This is what happened. This is an accident.
I
blah,
mean,
blah.
you have access on
Only
the
if it's a
internet.
public trial, right? Like, unless like if it gets attention, like otherwise
Go on
you
the
wouldn't.
Supreme Court to find all these
Not-
judgments.
most things don't make it to the Supreme Court.
No. But I mean, okay. So here's the thing. I keep wanting to say what I want to say, but then I'm keep realizing that you guys don't have the same access. I can access all this stuff extremely easily because I have this abonnement at all these websites that I
When you
can
went
look.
to school, you have like the library stuff. that
Yeah, I
go in
can.
there.
Every single day it's updated. I can look at any single case and find out all the
Any single case
information.
in
So
Quebec, in Montreal,
all over
in-
Canada.
all over Canada.
So and
That's
and
cool.
the
That's
world on certain websites I can go all over the world. So
Do you use it?
of course every day, of course. But so what I mean is,
You stay abreast of the
so I
latest
can
information.
because I'm in a position where I can understand it, and I it's not for purposes other than my understanding of the law, whereas other people can use that information against the individual. There's too much weighing down on the
I don't think they should
accused.
put their address on there.
No.
But there
Even
just be
no,
some kind of publicly searchable
no.
thing that says like this.
No, there's so much stuff weighing down. You gotta. So you're coming
even
from.
then, you have to know what you're looking for.
But you're still coming from a punishment perspective. That's not.
No.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm coming from a knowledge perspective.
No, you're punishing the individual.
No.
You don't think there's adverse effects that comes from having all this
Maybe,
information?
but I'm not going to look at that for pretty much anyone. I just think that it should be
Okay,
there.
but that's not you. You don't. Like, once again, this comes down to you being a rational person,
But I also
and not
think that-
other people's not being rational.
But, well, let me ask you in a different way, because the flip side of that is, do I deserve to know that? Or do I deserve to have the chance to know that?
Yeah, you do have the chance to know that. It's done.
Maybe. You'll hear it click. They won't, but you will. Anyway, the camera's probably going to die soon anyway, so.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't believe that your right to information outweighs the individual rights to privacy. I think we do as a common law system that dates back to hundreds of years, we prioritize privacy.
I'll say this.
That's
It
why-
works in my world, but I am not, it's not something I feel very strongly about. You know what I mean? Because like in my head, like I can use that, I can look at that and not judge someone
and use it.
assume,
I think
No,
you
but
use used in there too.
well, use it in the sense that if there is someone in my area who's a fucking child predator, like sure, of course I want to know that.
Malicious
So
stuff.
so here's what's interesting to me is you said yes for child predators, but not for other crimes.
No, I said for certain child for
Right. Well,
for,
how do you draw that line? But it's the same question.
It's completely different. It's completely different. An individual who robs a store at 17, and all he got was like a $200 because he lives in a social economic situation where he doesn't have much money.
That's fair. But in
different
my
than
world,
someone who is a pedophile and actively seeking
in my
out to
world,
touch young children.
you should be able to see that.
But there's difference, and we do
Sure.
draw the line. And our system does provide that line. That's why you do have public registries for sex offenders and not for robberies or misdemeanors
In
and
that
stuff
sense,
like
it
that.
almost already is public if you're just willing to put whatever the fee is. I don't know how much it costs to do it, but
I mean,
pretty much
sex
is.
offenders are all online. I'm pretty sure you can see that for free. I'm pretty sure they have a website like
The government does that?
I don't know. I don't know. You should be the one that's looking this up. I don't know if you can
Maybe.
look at it.
I will. If I ever make a content on it. For now, I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
And
I've put my opinion on it.
And I'm telling
and
you,
I
I
can
think
back
it's
up.
wrong.
I could back up for a bunch of reasons why I think it's true. But again, it's not something I feel very strongly about.
Right.
It's just there are some positives that I think can come from that.
A general blanket
And
allowance of all that to be registered? No. Certain crimes like sex offenders, sure, but within that category, a certain kind of it, sure.
like I said, I'm not super strong about it. I could see pros and cons on both sides,
I mean,
and
that's
totally,
why we
I'm
draw
totally there.
lines, and
But
that's
there
why
are-
we have these things.
Well, that's why it's about a discussion. It's not about saying, just because I see something on my app where it's like, okay, let's say 80% say something and 20% say yes. It doesn't mean that the answer is do what these 80% of the people say. And first of all, this 80% of people, it's a very basic question, might not all think the same way
Right.
about how they feel about yes or no or whatever it is. And it's about drilling down on some of these very important questions. And it's not just looking at something in a vacuum and saying this question is a monolith and this defines how everyone feels. It's just looking at something and saying, well, okay, we'll take this in context, and this is interesting information.
Yeah.
This is how whatever. Right now it's whatever 20 or 30 people, but a million, 2 million, that's super interesting.
That's why I believe in your app.
And it doesn't exist anywhere else. There are different places where you can do different things, but I don't think there's anything like that exists similarly. Where it's trying to accomplish the same thing, and it's a different source of information.
INaction 2021?
INaction 2020.
2020?
Let's go. This year.
When's our next our federal no, we just had
God,
we just had it another 4
no,
years.
Call a snap election. No, I was just
maybe.
talking about like running the company. I'm not talking about running for fucking.
Hey, you were talking about being a political party before.
Yeah, well, I was saying it would be super easy to do. I also was thinking, just ironically on that point, not thinking about, but just joking about starting a church.
What the fuck? You're sounding like fucking Manson here. You're gonna be killing some people, some cult.
No, but I thought about
giving them
okay. Well, the
acid
reason I thought about the
desert.
pros and cons of doing a political party is like, what benefit do I get? Like, I have to find someone else who wants to run for the election.
You don't want to pay taxes. That's what you want to do.
That's exactly why I would want to do. And but it would be about showing the ridiculous of the current system that allows for that people to get away with that
I
stuff.
think Trump already showed.
So it was the same thing. It was the same thing for running. I think that people might look back at in time and be like, this was the greatest comedic performance of all time.
So
of all time.
We're already getting that, so I don't know if we need a INaction.
No,
church.
but I'm saying like the world
maybe I'd go.
doesn't see it for what it is yet. But they're gonna look back and they're gonna realize that this was a man who had no intentions of being a politician.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm playing a game and I'm winning it so well that you don't even realize what's going on.
Well,
and it's gonna be fucking hilarious. No, I mean it's not funny that, like, I don't know. I mean I could be totally wrong, but I mean he's clearly not. He's not playing the same game that other people are. He's out there for his brand name. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's not get on a rant
about that. The world
about
is like that. I thought I was watching something on I don't know if you ever seen. I think the guy's name is Hassan Minhaj. He used to be on the Daily Show with right. Anyway, he's one of those like TV personalities, kind of like Jon Stewart or Trevor Noah. Something like they all came from the same Daily Show, and he had something on exactly that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean those kind of comedians are good to bring in, like, I mean, a comedy, but to give a different perspective on the world and what we're experiencing. And maybe Trump is exactly that. Like, he's just some comedian that's giving us a different outlook.
It's more complicated than that.
I mean,
it's a funny angle because the part of him that is a joke, and like I don't think people get that.
I mean, it depends where you're coming from. If you believe in
and
conspiracy thingies, then the parliament is a joke.
No,
but
I don't mean like I don't mean.
not a
Okay,
joke,
I
people.
should probably be more specific. I don't.
People are professionals in there.
People are gonna look at that and be like, no, you don't realize, like, because of course there's been consequences to the decisions that have been made. It's not a joke. Like, of course he's. Oh, there goes the camera. Okay, it's for sure done now. The battery's for sure done. But it's not a joke, and of course he's a real person. And if I met him, he's probably a nice enough guy. Like, he's a real person, like anyone you see in the media. Like, I talk shit about, like, oh, how could you do this, and such a terrible decision, and like, but it's fucking hard. You know, like we said so many times. You ask me a question like, how would you respond to this legal? I'm like, I don't know.
Extremely difficult.
You know, it's super hard. So like that, I'll be the first one to say that. And you know, a lot of the stuff that I'll say, like, comes from emotion, but. You talk about like the Trump thing, like, yeah, I say it's a joke and I say he's a comedic performance, but part of it is that, like, this is someone who's taking the general rules of the system, shitting on them on purpose, and just being like, I'm gonna do it anyway. And that's what I meant by, like, he's making a joke of it. He's taking the common rules of it and he's
flipping it on its ass.
Yeah, he's not literally Guy Natel in Quebec, who is a comedian who's running for politics. He's not literally the guy from Ukraine who is a comedian and became the prime minister. He's not literally the guy from Italy who was a clown or was a whatever and became like a very prominent political figure in Italy. Like, but he is making a joke of the whole.
I mean, he
thing.
did
that,
entertain WWE people.
For that, I love it.
Yeah, it gives us stuff to laugh about and talk about for sure.
It shows that the system pretty much works on its own, and people like the core, like most people who work for civil service, for the law, for the community, for businesses. There are good people. There are scum out there who are making awful, selfish decisions that benefit only themselves at the expense of other people. But more or less, the world pretty much works. Here, anyway. Should be more specific on that.
That was Phil's rant of the night.
Yeah, well, that's mine. You get a bunch of ones about the law.
I got no more rants for you. I'm gonna have to tap out.
That's cool. All right, yeah, dude. Thanks so much for coming. I hope you guys learned something about the law.
Thank
I
you.
hope
I mean,
yourself.
I personally want to just say thank you for having me on this. I'm gonna look at this in the future and be like, wow, this is a super extreme experience. Extreme. See, once again, I'm my words are coming out, not really thinking of them. So
dude, it's fun. Hey, it's fun for me too.
Yeah.
I'm super happy you came by. Like, this is how we would pretty much chill anyway. Like, I don't think any conversation we had now is any different than what we would do sitting somewhere else.
Don't take what I said as a truth.
When the fucking woke PC people take that out, they are gonna edit that out.
No, exactly. This little segment is gonna be like, no, this was never said.
It's just gonna be like, Andrew cares about the extreme
experience,
extreme law. For sure, just sent the sound off too. Like, people are gonna be like, what the fuck just happened? That's funny, dude. Thanks so much, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how your career turns out. You know, and like. Especially looking back at some of these specific things that we're talking about.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to be looking at this and be like, wow.
I was hella dumb.
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be a lot of that.
Or maybe.
Wow, you don't actually know anything about the law at that time.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I think no matter what happens, I'll be proud of the fact that like I was willing to.
And I'm happy. Thank you. This was my first experience, so this is.
We're going to be.
We're on the up and ups.
Way better at this next time. All right, that's a good spot to end it. Thanks a lot. Later, boys and ladies. I'll edit that out.
All of them.
Yeah, I'll edit that spot out.